Hello and welcome to my video for how to get faster at the 3x3 Rubik's Cube. My name is Andrew Ricci. I am a North American record holder for the 3x3 single solve, as well as the national champion for the 3x3 at the 2012 US Nationals. Some other things that really aren't nearly as important. And I'm going to be showing you how exactly I think is the best way to get faster at the 3x3. Now first, this video is going under the assumption that you know some sort of beginner method. It doesn't really matter what it is, most likely some sort of layer by layer or a method of that sort. And basically, taking that knowledge, you're going to apply that to a more speed-solving friendly method, something that you'd be able to do that is, much faster on average overall, and has more steps condensed into one. The method that I use is what most people probably use, is the Friedrich method, or CFOP, which is cross F2L, OLL, and PLL. I'll start by giving a quick demonstration of a solve, just fairly slowly, just so you can get a general idea of the sort of method that I would be using, and how exactly I go through a solve. And then I'll explain it a little bit more in depth afterwards. Alright, so basically that was quick. Not in actuality for me, but it was, I didn't really explain anything. But the basic essence of CFOP is to first make a cross, which is I solve on white only. A lot of people are color neutral. I think that color neutral and solving single cross can certainly work just as well as each other. But basically, to show you quickly, you'd make a cross with the four white edges forming a T pattern, if you will, and then you insert pairs of corners and edges at the same time in order to complete the first two layers. Now, this can be done incredibly quickly because you're combining the pieces that you're solving into what is effectively four simple algorithms, and you can treat them either as algorithms or as simply something that you're intuitively doing based on where the pieces are, which is, it really depends on what you prefer personally. I know a lot of people who learned F2L algorithmically, and I know a lot of people who learned it more in an intuitive way, and I think that no matter what you do, eventually the two of them are going to cross paths, and you're going to be figuring out how to do it algorithmically if you did it intuitively, or how to do it intuitively if you did it algorithmically, in a way that you'll eventually learn how to do it most efficiently overall. So after you've completed the F2L, you orient all the pieces on the top layer, and then you permute them so that the cube is completely solved. Now that's very quick. This isn't meant to be a complete explanation, just sort of to give you some ideas as to what you should be doing in order to get faster. So now that demonstration right there was something, you can find some much more in-depth, like tutorials on how to solve using the CFOP Friedrich method, which will certainly be in the description, as well as a bunch of other helpful links will be in there for, tools as to where to get started for the 3x3 and what to be doing, and probably in some annotations as well. So that is like a basic explanation of the Friedrich method, and I think that, from my experience at least, it is certainly the method that I think is most effective for me personally, because I think my mind kind of works best with that sort of method, although there are plenty of other speed solving methods that are, probably equally viable. I know a lot of people have managed to get it with Roux, and countless others. There's no reason to limit yourself simply to Friedrich because you see a lot of fast people doing it. There are plenty of other methods that are equally good and are, just as viable as Friedrich is. So make sure you, like, if you're looking at the different methods you want to do, figure out what feels best to you after after you doing a bit of research as to it. And additionally, when it comes to picking what you feel is best, whether you want to solve cross with a single color or whether you want to be color neutral. Now, I think from my perspective, I think that solving the cross on one color is what is best for me personally, as it really gets your solves really standardized in the way that you'll look at a solve and you'll know exactly what you're going to be doing every single time. And inspection is really quick. You can, you'll run into a lot of the same cases very frequently because you're seeing the same colors, you're seeing the same four edges that you have to place. And I think that also something that comes with being single cross color is that it's much easier to notice an opportunity for an extended cross, because I think that if you're doing color neutral, you're going to be looking at extended cross and not really knowing, or maybe missing out on an extended cross because you're trying to look at 6 different colors in the inspection time that you have. Now, I know a lot of people who are color neutral that inspect very quickly, so I'm not saying that this is necessarily going to be an issue for you or for those people, but from what I've seen and what I've experienced myself, that is something that is an issue. But ultimately, you could either be solve with just one cross color or solve color neutral and not really have any issues when it comes to that. So that is kind of the very basic explanation as to the Friedrich method and speed solving methods in general. Now, some more advanced stuff is going to come after this, and then towards the end of the video it's going to get more and more advanced. So that's it for this segment. Alright, so this next segment I'm going to be talking a lot about different algorithms specifically for the Friedrich method, pertaining to F2L as well as OLL and PLL. Firstly, when it comes to F2L, I think that for me personally, taking an algorithmic kind of approach to doing the F2L ended up working out best and working out best in my favor, though I can completely understand how some people will want to see F2L as an intuitive thing and not want to be constrained to simply thinking of it as a series of algorithms. However, I'm sure that looking at it as a series of algorithms is very, very helpful for some people. So, for instance, if I have this white, blue, red corner here, and then this blue and red edge here, I could simply think of this as separating the corner and the edge, pairing them up again, and then inserting it. Or I could simply learn the algorithm for this case when inserting in the back and do R prime, U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R. Now, both instances do the exact same thing. However, if you're looking at it from the perspective of going into a solve and simply knowing what to do when you run into a certain case, you're going to find that they're ultimately going to devolve into the same thing. However, when I see a lot of people doing intuitive F2L, I notice that they really seem to struggle and use just too many moves when it comes to certain cases. And I don't put any blame on them. It's not their fault. But when you are doing F2L, it's incredibly important that you familiarize yourself with how exactly you're going to execute every case. Because if you go into a solve and you don't know what you're doing, and you have to spend time thinking of, okay, I've got this F2L pair, how do I do this? How do I do this most efficiently? How am I going to, solve it? It's going to be something that's a lot more confusing, and it's going to certainly waste time. Now, the most important thing when it comes to F2L is look ahead. Now, look ahead is simply, in basic terms, is not focusing on the pair you're solving, solving it, but while looking at the next pair that you're going to be doing. So, in my mind, the only way that you're going to be able to do that and do that successfully and do it well is firstly with a lot of practice. I mean, that's really the most important thing when it comes to cubing. That's the most important thing. Is something that you can't really teach. It's something that is just something that you do. You just have to practice. You just have to put in a lot of effort in order to get a good result. Now, when it comes to the F2L and look ahead especially, that is something that's probably going to require the most practice out of anything that you do on the cube. I mean, that is really just a huge, huge time consumer when it comes to look ahead and doing that. So if you are struggling with the F2L, if you're struggling with look ahead, then it's very important that you firstly know how to do it, and then second, know how to properly practice it. Now, back to what I was saying about algorithms versus intuitive understanding of F2L. An intuitive understanding of F2L can be incredibly important as well, because that sort of understanding is what is going to allow you to see a certain pair and already have it in your mind how exactly you're going to solve it, but not necessarily restraining yourself to doing it a particular way. Because if you simply memorize all the algorithms necessary to solve every single F2L combination in existence, sure, you're going to know how to do them, but you probably won't have the best grasp on how to do it efficiently and how to do it in relation to other pairs or at certain angles you might not be familiar with. So when it comes to things like that, I say you're better off you're probably better off starting with intuitive, and then once you've got a grasp of that, looking at algorithms for how to do F2L cases. And there are a number of really great resources that show, a number of different ways to solve each F2L case. Certainly on the Speed Solving Wiki, there's a lot of great information there, and just detailed, different ways to solve every case from every angle. So once you've got your intuitive understanding down, you can then progress that to something that is more effective when it comes to being in actual solves. So that way you'll have a grasp on what exactly you're doing, and then also have a grasp on how to do that most efficiently. And then once you've got those two down, you can be both knowing what you're doing it efficiently, and then doing that while looking at your next pair, your next move, and having that look ahead ability, which is incredibly important for any speed solver and any method, really. So after this, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the OLL and PLL algorithms, which, I mean, most of which are pretty straightforward, things that you can learn just from looking at a spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, but a printable sheet, or you know, the speed solving wiki, looking at algorithms for how to solve each case. Now, you should be starting, if you don't already know, the both 2-look OLL and 2-look PLL, because that way you'll be able to solve any last layer case at all in 4 steps while knowing a fairly minimal number of algorithms. You know, I think it's only maybe 15, 16, somewhere around there for the last layer, and a lot of them are derivative from each other. So you'll know how to solve the last layer in any circumstance in 4 steps, simply with that very basic knowledge. Then after that, you can progress towards learning full PLL and then full OLL. I say full PLL first because full PLL is far fewer algorithms than full OLL. It's actually, OLL is more than, or nearly triple the full PLL. So learn full PLL first, and then gradually learn more and more OLLs until you have that knowledge in order to be able to solve the last layer in just 2 steps. And that is basically it as far as algorithms go. Really, just the most important thing is finding the best algorithm that works for you, and then practicing that as many times as you can. So next, I'm going to be talking a little bit about finger tricks when you're solving. What are the best finger tricks, the ones that I personally prefer, and stuff like that. So that's it. Alright, now, when it comes to doing individual finger tricks, I wouldn't really recommend anything specific to be using all around. You wouldn't want to be doing the same exact finger trick for every single algorithm, because even though an algorithm may be good, if you do the finger trick the exact same way, you might end up being, you know, doing it awkwardly or inefficiently, when if with a different finger trick, it could be very efficient. Now, here's an example. For my Y perm that I use, just the Y permutation for the last layer, I start doing the F prime right here with my left pointer finger, but then the second F prime is done with my thumb. Now, you might say, well, why don't you just do the left pointer finger again? Usually I would do the left pointer finger. It's usually the most efficient thing to do. For instance, if we look at a J permutation, you'll see that using my left pointer finger can be incredibly fast, especially here, which is one of the fastest PLLs. And then that is probably the most useful for that case. But you can't simply look at everything like it's the exact same. It's going to really differ. It's you have to look at everything on a case-by-case basis. So knowing how to do every turn a number of different ways will be very, very helpful for you in the end. Now, a lot of people will do U2, will do two U-turns with their pointer and middle finger on their right hand. But some people will also do it with the pointer and middle of their left hand, which is a U2 prime, which is something that can be very useful for a number of algorithms, specifically a very common version of the R permutation. People will do a U2 prime. Though personally I can't do it, so I simply, in this case, rather than changing my finger tricks to fit the algorithm, I change the algorithm to fit my finger tricks. So, whereas many people will do, I don't even know if I know how to do this. I don't. Either way, well, many people will do the R permutation using a U prime 2. I simply chose a different algorithm that uses U2 so that I can do it with my right hand. And that algorithm is actually a lot faster. I can do a lot faster than a lot of other people who use the more commonly used algorithm. So in that instance, changing the algorithm to fit my finger tricks works better than changing my finger tricks to fit the algorithm. I notice a lot of beginners will turn the front face with their whole wrist, their whole hand, rather than simply using maybe their pointer fingers or the thumb, and that's a big finger trick to do, rather than re-gripping and then turning it with your whole hand. Additionally, I see a lot of people doing that same thing with the down face, whereas you can easily use your ring finger. Some people do pinky, I think, although I do ring. You use your ring finger, or pinky ring for a D2, and that's a very, very helpful finger trick. That's something that can be used incredibly well, specifically in like an A term, that sort of thing, or an E term. Ooh. Anyway, so as far as other finger tricks go, it really depends on the situation. For G perms, for instance, I'll do a U here with my middle finger almost. It's sort of like a pushing, and then like that, which is actually incredibly fast if you can do it right. So it really just depends on how the flow of the solve is and what exactly you're doing, which will base your finger tricks on. So ultimately, find good algorithms that work for you, and then choose, figure out how you do your finger tricks based on that. Or if you are using an algorithm and you can't really finger trick it well, look for another one, because chances are there's one that you'll be able to finger trick well. Now there's certain ones that are really, you kind of can't do all that well, at least in my experience, such as the V-perm. V-perm is a very difficult one to actually do quickly. Even if I'm not terribly messing it up, like I am right now, the V-perm is quite slow. So certain algorithms you're not really going to be able to do that much with. You're not going to be able to do, maybe sub 0.8 seconds or something like that. But generally speaking, there are good algorithms for pretty much any case. So it's all about finding those and finding the right finger tricks for that. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about practicing and how exactly you should practice, what you should spend your time focusing on, etc. So, when you are practicing the cube, typically I wouldn't recommend doing an incredibly large amount of solves at once. I think it's probably best if you stick to doing just sessions of maybe 50, 100 solves, and don't go too overboard. You don't need to do 1,000 solves in a day. I mean, if you're feeling up for it and you really want to do it, I say that's fine, go for it. But ultimately for me, after I got to a certain point, after I reached 100, 150, 200 solves, I just started to get more tired, and I started to slow down, and I wasn't really getting very much out of it as I would have been if I'd stopped, took a break for a few hours, and then came back to it, did 100 more solves, stopped and repeated. So ultimately, you need to be practicing the right way in order to get the best improvement, in order to improve quicker over a short period of time. So the way that a lot of people also do, something that I personally never really did, but I can see the implications of it, I can see why it will work well, is to do, is to be doing a normal session of solves, but rather than solving it as fast as you can, they simply will try and go for a completely smooth, slow solve, whereas you don't have very many pauses at all. I'm sorry, I'm looking through the camera, so I'm going to be pausing a lot. But you don't finger trick very quickly. You simply focus on turning smoothly and not having any pauses, which I think that is a very, very helpful way to do solves, especially if you're at a point, say, over 20 seconds or even any more. I mean, whatever speed you're at, it's certainly great if you just learned a new method and you're working on that and you're working at getting better at that method. Having the ability to do a slow, smooth solve that you can just kind of gradually go through the entire thing without really making any pauses, really no matter how slow you have to do it, because eventually you'll be able to translate that slow solve into a smooth, faster solve, and then faster and faster and faster and faster, until you eventually get to the point where you're solving as fast as you can, but still smoothly. And this is something that's especially great for F2L look ahead. When you're looking ahead in the F2L, you really want to have a very smooth, gradual solve. So you can be doing what you're doing, and then also looking ahead, seeing what pairs you can that are most viable to do, what the best decisions are related to your next move in the solve, so that you're really you're really moving very calmly, not trying to go extra fast and then stumbling because you're not paying attention to what you're doing next, or you're just going too fast for your mind to even comprehend what's coming next. So ultimately, you'd want to do what you're doing, but at a very gradual pace, and then taking that and then eventually improving upon it, making it faster. Because I mean, this really does work. I mean, especially for people that are new to F2L, it's a great technique to use. And also, as for practicing, I think that putting on music, or doing or doing something else while you practice certainly makes the labor, if you will, a bit less difficult, a bit more fun. And you don't really have to be in a zone, I don't think, unless you're doing really, really well, in which you'd want to stay in that zone. But you don't really have to be too focused on the session of solves that you're doing. You can do pretty much whatever, and then come back, do a few solves, do whatever else you're doing, without really having to worry about about staying in the mood in the moment, because really giving your mind a break from solving can actually make your next solve even better. I've had that happen certainly a number of times. So whatever really works best for you is probably the best way you want to do it. It doesn't necessarily have to be what I do. Simply whatever you find puts you in the best cubing mindset. Alright, so finally I'm going to kind of wrap this up with a bit of a bit of discussion about advanced techniques, my views on them, what I use, etc. Personally, I don't think any advanced techniques are really necessary. I think once you've got the basic Friedrich method down, or whatever method you happen to be using, you really shouldn't need to go above and beyond that much at all. Pretty much, if you've got if you've got your solve standardized, if you know the best finger tricks, the best algorithms, if you've practiced a lot, you'll be able to solve to the best of your ability. I think that trying to do more advanced techniques is pretty, superfluous and unnecessary. I mean, you're not really going to be gaining that much out of them. In fact, some people, I think, might even do worse knowing too many advanced techniques because they're not really focusing on what's essential and what's important. They're really trying to do too much, almost. Which, I mean, in a way, I think it could be good if you're looking at something like extended cross. I think extended cross is a very, very useful thing to do. When it comes to things like basic edge control, I think that can be pretty useful when it comes to like, inserting a pair a different way during the F2L to get a better result. I think that can be something that's very useful. Stuff like winter variation, just knowing a few of the very simple ones, that can be something that's good to know, because some of them are very easy and you can actually skip OLL in, maybe 4 to 7 moves or so. So I mean, it can be, some of them are very simple and very easy to do. Additionally, I mean, there are some F2L tricks I would say are worth knowing, and stuff that I'm glad I do know, but I wouldn't say any of them are essential. I mean, they're pretty much all throwaway things that, whether I had them or not, wouldn't really affect how quickly I'm able to solve on average. It's really, really the most important things all come down to how fast you're able to complete the cross, then your cross to F2L transition, your F2L, and then your OLL and PLL speeds, but also their recognition and the transitions between all the different steps is really what has the biggest impact. And once you're able to, smoothly move between all the different steps, you'll really see yourself going, incredible amount faster on the cube, whether it's, being better able to solve individual F2L pairs, or, having all your PLLs mastered and everything like that. It all really factors in, but I think that the essential things are the ones that you should be focusing the most on. Knowing tricks isn't really the most necessary thing in the world, ultimately. It really just comes down to practice, and practicing within the best circumstances, and practicing the most important things. So that's pretty much all for this video. It's going to be like half an hour long. Oh my god, I'm sure most of you won't even watch till this point. But if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section. I'll reply to everyone I can. And I hope this helps some of you at least. Hopefully somebody out there got something from this video. Alright, take care.